Imagine sitting in a quiet, dimly lit room. The world outside feels uncertain, chaotic even. You hear the distant echoes of trouble, but here, in this intimate space, there's only silence. A silence that feels heavy with both fear and love. It's the night before everything changes forever. And in this stillness, you find yourself gazing into the eyes of the person who has altered your life more than anyone else. The one who has healed you, taught you, and revealed truths you never thought possible. This man has opened your eyes to mysteries that no one else dared to speak. You feel his presence, calm yet intense, as though his very being is preparing to release something profound. And then, with a voice that cuts through the tension of the moment, he speaks. Do not let your heart be troubled. These words don't come as a simple piece of advice or a fleeting reassurance. No, these are words that echo deep within your soul, piercing the darkness. In this sacred space, with all the world on the brink of upheaval, he shares with you one of the most profound messages ever spoken. His words are not just to comfort you. They are a revelation, a profound statement about divine presence, internal connection, and a promise that you will never truly be alone. When Jesus spoke these words to his disciples, they were on the precipice of a monumental shift. They had no idea of the gravity of what was about to unfold. Their hearts, already heavy with uncertainty, were filled with fear. They sensed something was coming, something none of them could prepare for. Yet, in that moment of fear, Jesus reveals one of the deepest mysteries of divine love. That God is not a distant, detached force, but a living presence, one that dwells within each of us. His words resonate with an ancient truth that transcends all time and space. The words that follow are not just about comforting those who follow him. They are about pointing humanity to a truth that can change everything. In my Father's house are many dwelling places. These words, spoken by Jesus in the Gospel of John, are not just referring to a heavenly abode after death. They are not solely about the afterlife. Instead, this is a deep metaphysical truth, one that reaches into the very fabric of the universe. In ancient Hebrew thought, the house of God symbolized the entirety of the universe, the infinite temple where all souls have their place. Jesus is not simply talking about a distant heaven. He is revealing that the cosmos itself is the temple of the divine, and every soul has a purpose and a place within it. Think about this for a moment. Every heart, every person, is a chamber in the eternal house of God. Even those who feel lost, broken, or disconnected carry within them a sacred space where the divine presence resides. It's not just a metaphor, it's a spiritual truth. Jesus speaks of preparing a place for us, but this preparation is not just a journey to a faraway heaven. It's the preparation of the soul. In esoteric Christianity, and in many ancient mystical traditions, this chapter is seen as a revelation of spiritual evolution. The place Jesus prepares is not just a physical space. It's a higher state of consciousness, an inner awakening through love and faith. It's where the soul unites with the Logos, the divine word that creates and sustains all things. In Hermetic philosophy, this principle is known as above, so below, signifying the unity between the heavens and the soul. Jesus, in this moment, embodies this law perfectly when he says, I am in the Father, and the Father is in me. What Jesus is revealing is the secret of unity, the mystery of the microcosm and macrocosm. The same divine essence that gives life to the galaxies flows through the human heart. The universe itself is alive, and the divine is not far removed from us. It is within us. We are not separate from the cosmos, we are deeply connected to it. This is the unity that Jesus is speaking of. And yet, it is not a unity that comes from intellectual knowledge alone. It is something deeper, something that is felt within the very core of our being. When Jesus looks at his disciples and tells them, You know the way to the place where I am going, Thomas, representing the human mind full of doubt and questions, responds, Lord, we do not know where you are going. How can we know the way? And then comes one of the most powerful statements ever spoken. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. For centuries, these words have often been interpreted as an exclusivist statement, as if Jesus were closing the path to all but a few. But if we examine this deeply, through the lens of spiritual wisdom, we see that Jesus is not claiming exclusivity in a narrow sense. Instead, he is revealing the universal pattern of awakening. When Jesus says, "I am the way," he is not merely pointing to himself as an individual. He is pointing to the divine consciousness, the Christ within that is the path itself. To know God is to awaken the presence of that same divine consciousness within. Mystics across all traditions have encountered this truth. Meister Eckhart, a 14th century Christian mystic, said, "The eye through which I see God is the same eye through which God sees me." This is the essence of John 14. It is not about separation. It is about union. When Jesus says, "Believe in me," he is not demanding blind faith in a person. Instead, he is inviting humanity to awaken to the divine nature that he embodied. He is calling us to recognize the inner Christ that lives within each of us. The true path, the way to God, is to live as he lived, in harmony with the Father, with unconditional love, unwavering trust, and a deep connection to the divine presence within. But the message doesn't stop there. Jesus continues, "If you love me, you will keep my commandments, and I will ask the Father, and he will give you another helper to be with you forever, the Spirit of truth." Here, Jesus unveils one of the greatest spiritual mysteries, the descent of the divine Spirit into human consciousness. The helper or paraclete is the divine energy that awakens wisdom and guides the soul toward higher realms of understanding. This is not just a theological idea. It is an experience. It is the mystical path that Jesus opened for all who seek union with the eternal. The same divine energy that moved over the waters at creation, the same energy that formed galaxies and breathed life into Adam, now dwells within you. This is the divine spark that guides you, comforts you, and reveals truth to you from the inside out. The greatest beauty of Jesus' message lies in this divine presence. It is not something distant. It is not something that we must wait for in the afterlife. It is here now within us. Jesus promises, "I will not leave you as orphans. I will come to you." Even though he was about to be crucified, he spoke not of leaving as a ghost or a memory, but of returning as a living force within those who love him. Think about the depth of this promise. Jesus was about to face the most harrowing event of his life, yet he spoke of his return not as an abstract idea but as a living presence within the hearts of those who open themselves to him. "I will come to you" is not a promise of some distant return at the end of time. It is the promise of the eternal Christ within, alive in the very core of your soul. This is not just a theological statement. It is a living, breathing truth. The Christ within is the spark of the divine that awakens through love, awareness, and surrender. The Apostle Paul would later say, "Christ in you, the hope of glory." It is the same light that the Gnostics, the Desert Fathers, and mystics from the East recognized as the inner light, the divine spark that transcends time and space. In John 14, Jesus gives us the key to understanding the deepest mysteries of existence. The truth that we are not separate from God. We exist within the very being of God, and God dwells within us. This is the essence of the spiritual journey. To awaken to this truth, to recognize the divinity that resides within, and to live in alignment with that divine presence. To grasp this truth requires faith, not blind belief but spiritual perception. It requires the courage to look beyond the illusions of separation and recognize the unity that exists between you and the divine. Jesus beautifully intertwines love and revelation in a single, powerful statement. "Whoever loves me will be loved by my Father, and I will love them and reveal myself to them." This profound declaration speaks not just of affection but of the transformative power of love. It speaks to the very essence of spiritual awakening. In the realm of mysticism, revelation is not something distant or hidden behind complex doctrines. It is a natural resonance, an experience that emerges when you align with the vibration of the divine. Love, in its truest form, becomes the conduit for that divine connection. Imagine your heart as a sacred temple. When fear, doubt, and resentment fill this space, the light of the divine is clouded, and the presence of God feels distant. far away. But when love reigns, the temple fills with light, and that light is Christ revealing himself within you. This is not just a metaphorical idea. It is the inner awakening that leads to direct communion with the divine. Jesus continues, revealing a deep truth that unveils the process of inner transformation. The world cannot accept him because it neither sees him nor knows him. Why? Because the world seeks with the eyes of matter, not the eyes of the soul. The spirit is not something that can be perceived through external observation. It requires inner awareness, a deeper perception beyond the physical realm. This is why Jesus often said, "He who has ears to hear, let him hear." It's an invitation to awaken a higher perception, to move beyond mere appearances, and to sense the invisible reality that sustains all creation. This concept echoes the teachings of Hermeticism, particularly the idea expressed by Hermes Trismegistus, the legendary master of ancient wisdom. He said, "That which is below is like that which is above, and that which is above is like that which is below." This statement encapsulates the idea that the divine is not separate from the world. It is a reflection of the higher realms manifesting in the earthly experience. Jesus, in this context, shows his disciples that the kingdom of God is not a far-off place. It is the eternal harmony between heaven and earth, the divine presence manifesting through human consciousness. When Jesus says, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you," it is not simply a farewell blessing. It is a transference of spiritual vibration. The peace of Christ is not the absence of conflict. It is the presence of divine order amidst chaos. It is the calm that remains untouched by the storms of the world, the stillness that holds the universe together. Mystics throughout history have understood this peace as the sign of spiritual realization. Saint Teresa of Avila called it the dwelling place of the soul in God. In that peace, thought ceases and awareness expands. It is the awareness that even pain, loss, and suffering are part of a grand, intelligent design guided by love. However, Jesus also understood that this peace would be challenged. He warned, "The ruler of this world is coming, but he has no power over me." Here, Jesus is not speaking of a person or a political force, but of the lower vibrations of consciousness: fear, ego, and illusion. These are the rulers of the world that enslave the human mind. Yet, through love and awareness, the soul can rise above them. The Christ consciousness within us is untouchable by darkness. It is the eternal flame that cannot be extinguished. When Jesus promised that the Spirit would come and dwell within us, he was giving humanity the key to liberation. This was not a promise of external salvation, but of inner awakening. However, this brings forth a paradox, one that only the spiritually awakened can fully understand. Jesus said, "It is to your advantage that I go away." How could his departure be to their advantage? Because as long as he remained in one body, his light could only be confined to that one form. But when he ascended, his spirit could dwell in all who opened their hearts. This represents the transformation from outer devotion to inner realization. The disciples would no longer follow Jesus from the outside. They would carry him within. And this is the essence of Jesus' message in John 14. God's dwelling is not in distant heavens, but within the human heart, the eternal sanctuary of the divine presence. Yet, there is an even deeper truth hidden within these words, one that ties the Gospel of John to the ancient wisdom of the ages. In the next part, we will uncover how Jesus' words in John 14 reveal the secret of divine union, the merging of the human soul with the infinite. This is the most beautiful truth ever spoken by a human voice. The message of John 14 is not merely about faith, but about transformation. It reveals how human consciousness can ascend from fear and separation into divine unity. It is the sacred alchemy of the soul. When Jesus says, "If anyone loves me, he will keep my word, and my Father will love him, and we will come to him and make our home with him," he is describing a mystical process. This is not metaphorical language, it is spiritual reality. The home that God and the Son create within the believer is a reborn consciousness. It is the heart becoming a living temple of divine presence. Think of it like this: in the beginning, humanity was unaware of its divine nature. The soul was like a closed flower, unaware of the light within. But when divine love touches it, the petals begin to open. Each act of faith, each moment of compassion, each surrender to the Spirit, these are rays of light that awaken the soul to its original beauty. Jesus was revealing that the kingdom of God is not something built by human hands. It is awakened from within. This same truth can be found in the ancient mysteries of Egypt, in the teachings of the Essenes, and in the philosophy of Plato. The divine world and the human world are not two separate realms. They are one reality, seen from different levels of perception. Plato spoke of the soul remembering its divine origin, saying that all learning is remembrance. But Jesus went beyond remembrance. He offered union. He didn't come to merely remind humanity of God. He came to embody God, so that through him, every soul could rediscover its divine essence. This is why Jesus said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." It is not a statement of exclusivity, but one of revelation. The way is the inner path of transformation. The truth is the direct knowledge of divine reality. And the life is the eternal presence of God, flowing through creation. Mystics throughout history have called this state of awareness by many names: enlightenment, cosmic consciousness, nirvana, the kingdom within. But all point to the same truth, the realization that the divine and the human are not separate. St. John of the Cross wrote, "The center of the soul is God, and in that center there is no distance, no longing, no fear, only presence." This is what Jesus was leading humanity toward. But there is another layer to his teaching, one that connects to the ancient language of symbols. In the Gospel, the Father's house has many dwelling places. These dwelling places represent levels of consciousness, dimensions of awareness that the soul travels through as it evolves. Every soul, on its journey through lifetimes or spiritual growth, ascends through these levels, expanding its capacity to hold divine light. Jesus' words were not only about a place after death. They were a roadmap for the soul's evolution. The first dwelling is faith, believing in something greater. The second is surrender, allowing divine will to guide your path. The third is love, when the heart opens fully, dissolving all boundaries between self and the divine. And the highest dwelling, the one Jesus prepared, is union, where the I and the thou become one being. In this state, prayer is no longer spoken, it is lived. Every breath becomes communion, every act becomes sacred, and every thought is illuminated by divine awareness. This is the peace Jesus spoke of, not external calm, but inner harmony with the rhythm of eternity. Now, consider these words again. "The Father who dwells in me does his works." Jesus reveals that his miracles were not his own doing, but the expression of divine energy through an awakened vessel. This is the secret of all true spiritual power. When the ego dissolves, divine will acts without obstruction. This is what the ancient mystics called theosis, the process of becoming one with God. The message of Jesus, as expressed in John 14, is not about becoming God in essence, but rather about becoming united with God's presence in love and purpose. This is a powerful transformation, where the soul, purified by truth and love, becomes a mirror through which God's divine light shines into the world. The Gospel of John carries this profound truth with clarity and depth. It begins with the iconic words, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." And by the time we reach chapter 14, we witness the completion of this cycle. The same divine Word, the Logos, is no longer distant. It dwells within you. The eternal beginning now finds its home in the human heart. But to awaken to this reality, the disciple must undergo an inner transformation, the dying of the old self. Jesus prepares his followers for this change when he says, "The world will see me no more, but you will see me." To the outer world, Christ seems to disappear, but to the awakened heart, he becomes more visible than ever before. His presence shifts from the external world to the inner world. This shift marks the transition from following an external teacher to recognizing the teacher within. This is what Jesus refers to as the resurrection within the soul. The outer form dies, but the spirit rises. The Christ that once walked beside humanity becomes the Christ that walks within it. This inner resurrection transforms ordinary life into sacred life. The early Christian mystics knew this truth intimately. The author of The Cloud of Unknowing wrote that only through surrender and silence can one truly meet God, not through reason, but through love. Jesus' words in John 14 point precisely to this silence, where the Spirit speaks not in sound but in being. Here, we discover the essence of Jesus' promise. The Helper, the Holy Spirit, will teach you all things and remind you of everything I have said to you. This is not some distant future prophecy, it is a present reality. The Spirit is the divine intelligence that continues to reveal truth within you. When you listen in stillness, when your heart is free from the noise of fear and the illusions of control, you begin to hear that inner voice, gentle, patient, and luminous. It is the same voice that spoke to Moses through the burning bush, the same whisper that reached Elijah in the quiet wind, and now it breathes within your soul. In that silence, you come to understand the deeper meaning of Jesus' words when he said, "The Father and I are one." In that sacred union, you realize that you and the divine were never separate. You were always one, but you were asleep to that truth. What Jesus came to do was awaken that memory within you, to ignite that light. And when it fully awakens, when you live from that awareness, then the prophecy of John 14 is fulfilled. You will do the works that I do, and greater works than these. Yes, Jesus meant this literally. In the next part of the message, we will explore the final and most powerful revelation of all, the true meaning of those words and how they reveal humanity's divine potential. When Jesus said, "Whoever believes in me will do the works that I do, and greater works than these," he was not exaggerating. He was unveiling the destiny of the awakened soul, that the same divine power flowing through him is destined to flow through all of humanity. This is one of the most astonishing and beautiful truths ever spoken. Imagine hearing these words for the first time. A teacher who calms storms, heals the sick, raises the dead, and forgives sins now looks at you and says, "You will do greater things." It must have sounded impossible to those who first heard it. Yet within that promise lies the seed of human divinity. In essence, Jesus was declaring that his mission was not to create followers but to awaken creators, beings who would continue his work, not through imitation, but through realization. The Spirit he promised would not only comfort them but empower them to manifest divine will on earth. Mystics throughout the centuries have echoed this truth. St. Augustine wrote, "God became man so that man might become divine." This does not mean humanity replaces God, but that it participates in his creative power through love and awareness. When the ego dissolves and only love remains, divine energy flows freely, and miracles become natural expressions of that union. That is the true meaning of greater works. It is not about competition, but continuation, the unfolding of Christ consciousness through time, spreading like light through every awakened heart. Every act of forgiveness, every word of truth, every moment of compassion is a continuation of the divine work Jesus began. When he said, "Whatever you ask in my name, I will do it," he was not offering a formula for personal desire. In sacred language, the name represents essence, the vibration of being. To ask in his name means to ask from the same consciousness of love and unity that he embodied. When you align with that vibration, your will and God's will become one, and creation responds in harmony. This is the key to spiritual manifestation. The power of the divine name is not in words but in awareness. When your thoughts, emotions, and actions vibrate with divine love, the universe itself begins to reflect that harmony. Jesus' words are not merely promises, they are invitations. Abide in me, and I in you. To abide is to live from within the Christ consciousness, to dwell in the awareness that God is the very essence of your being. Imagine a drop of water realizing it is part of the ocean. The drop does not lose itself. It discovers its vastness. So too, when the soul awakens to divine oneness, it does not disappear. It becomes infinite through love. This is why Jesus spoke so often of joy. "If you loved me, you would rejoice, because I am going to the Father." To the ordinary mind, separation brings sorrow, but to the awakened heart, it brings expansion. The spirit that was once confined to one form now fills the cosmos, breathing through every living being. Even in this transcendence, Jesus leaves a personal promise that touches the deepest part of the human heart. My peace I leave with you. My peace I give to you. This is the culmination of his message, not a peace granted by circumstances, but a peace born from divine union. In mystical terms, this peace is the still point at the center of existence, the heart of God, where all opposites dissolve. It is the peace that existed before creation, the silent harmony that holds galaxies in motion. When you dwell in that peace, the world cannot shake you because you have found your home in eternity. The 13th century mystic Meister Eckhart said, "The eye with which I see God is the same eye with which God sees me." That is what Jesus reveals in John 14, the realization that there is only one vision, one life, one spirit flowing through all. To live in that awareness is to live in heaven now. It is no coincidence that John, among all the gospel writers, is the one who calls himself the disciple whom Jesus loved. His gospel is the gospel of love, and love is the highest revelation. It is the force that unites the human and the divine, the visible and the invisible, the beginning and the end. In the end, the entire chapter of John 14 can be seen as a map of spiritual ascension. First, Jesus calms fear, saying, "Do not let your heart be troubled." Then, he reveals divine unity, saying, "I am in the Father, and the Father is in me." Next, he promises divine indwelling, saying, "We will make our home within you." And finally, he empowers us with the words, "You will do greater works." This is the full journey of the soul, from fear to faith, from separation to union, from seeking to becoming. When you meditate on these words, you begin to sense their living power. They are not just ancient verses. They are vibrations of divine truth. When spoken or heard with the heart open, they awaken the same spirit Jesus promised, the helper, the comforter, the eternal presence of God. That spirit continues to move today, through art, through kindness, through wisdom, through every heart that chooses love over fear. Every time you forgive, every time you bring peace into a place of conflict, every time you see the divine in another person, you fulfill the prophecy of John 14. You become part of the greater works. And perhaps this is the most beautiful message of all, that heaven is not waiting at the end of time. It is born each moment you awaken to love. That is the eternal dwelling place Jesus prepared. It is not made of walls or stars, but of awareness, compassion, and unity. So, when you hear his words, do not let your heart be troubled. Remember that they were not meant only for his disciples 2,000 years ago. They were spoken for you here and now. They are the call to awaken, to remember who you truly are, a child of the infinite, a vessel of divine light, a living temple of the eternal. And if you ever feel lost, uncertain, or alone, return to this promise. I am with you always, not as a memory, not as a symbol, but as a living presence that breathes within your own heart. Because the most beautiful message of Jesus in John 14 is not only that God is with us, but that God is within us.